Welcome to Dwarven Forge Live. This is On the Anvil, episode 54. Welcome, I am Nate, this is Chris, and this is the show where we take you behind the scenes here at Dwarven Forge, show you what we're working on, what our thought process is, or lack thereof, show you the whole thing, warts and all, and with no tech issues ever, period.com, the end. Mostly we just hang out for a couple hours, have a drink and talk terrain, talk RPGs, and I don't know, talk turkey? Do we ever talk about turkeys?
We could.
Yeah, tonight could be
the night. Is that
an
expression I'm not familiar with? Is that an expression from the before times?
I don't know. So it's a thing. I don't even know what it means.
Is it like bowling?
Dude, I don't know anything about sports. I don't even know if bowling counts as a sport, but I don't know anything about it.
Bowling's like a more aggressive leisure activity, I feel.
All right, fair. I think it's... I
always found competitive bowling fascinating because you two don't actually interact with each other at all.
You just, whether or not scowl. I watch The Big Lebowski. I know you like lick your ball and you like scowl at the people, and that's
there might be like some mind games to it, but I always feel like with poker you're actively playing against each other. With bowling, it's just two people playing alongside each other, really.
Fair.
So I guess outside of intimidating them, I don't know.
Well,
the point is,
we're going to stay on track no matter what happens this episode. It's important because we have some special guests here tonight from WebDM. We have Jim and Prue. Joining us in the virtual studio, sort of. Joining us on Discord, joining us in the flesh, digitally.
Yeah, welcome guys. It's gonna be a bit of a different format tonight. We're not really doing news. Most things we don't really have that much to say anyways, but also we just wanted to kind of devote as much time as possible to these guys.
We want to get every nugget of information out of you that we can. Well,
yeah, let's do it.
Do you guys ever do competitive bowling? Is this a thing?
Me.
Just a little bit
more than me.
Yeah, we used to bowl a lot, and there'd be some money sometimes. I've never done a league though. I'll be honest.
My
highest I've ever bowled is a 206.
One of my younger brothers. One of my younger brothers.
300.
One of my younger brothers does like league bowling, and he just came in like second place in like a tournament in Vegas or something.
In Vegas?
Yeah. Wow. It was like a kids tournament, so it was like $200, and he also didn't like really do Vegas.
Got it.
But, you know, he got to like see like a hotel lobby or something.
You didn't go into details. You could really impress some people with that, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had me until you like actually give the details. You should have just left it as this like enigmatic, like, wow, he's just like hustling.
Really, in Vegas.
Wow. Yeah.
A big deal. So you guys launched a Kickstarter. We're gonna talk about that. We'll at the halfway point we're gonna do a giveaway for a $50 gift card or starter dungeon. Actually, we don't have any starter dungeons still, right? So $50 Dwarven Forge gift card
or a basic Caverns core set.
Or a basic.
Yeah, we're doing basic Caverns core until we get the starter dungeon back in stock.
And then after the halfway point of the break, we're gonna talk a little bit about DM advice. I know you guys have never given out DM advice before, so this will be exciting.
I only just started like four months ago, so it should be good.
Nice. Well, you still have some fresh nuggets, and we're gonna take questions live from the audience. And you got to watch out; they throw some hard balls. It's the serious.
We have a ruthless audience.
What's a hard ball? What's a bowling, like it's a vicious bowling move that they could throw at you? It's a.
You ever see Mystery Men?
Yes.
Yes, the bowler.
Yeah. Well, they're gonna mystery menu. I don't know.
They're gonna take your hand off in the return shoot.
They're gonna knock Jim and I out like a 7-10 split. There you go.
There you go.
Boom. Thank you, Pruitt.
There he is.
So first of all, actually, for anybody that doesn't know. What you guys want to introduce yourselves and your esteemed RPG pedigrees and all the diplomas and stuff. Wizard College.
Yeah. Certainly, yeah. So we are WebDM. Pruitt and I, we both co-host a show over on YouTube where we, like D&D is sort of our home base, but we go afield at times as all RPGers want to do. Talk about a lot of stuff in the tabletop RPG scene. So we like to think that our videos are inspirational and educational, but we don't really like do a lot of the top 3 of the worst things you've ever heard in D&D, or these spells are terrible. Like, tend to be more like to think of it as a video library that you listen to or watch whenever you need something specific. So, yeah. Pruitt, did I leave anything out?
No, that's pretty much it. We got our first Kickstarter, but that's why we're here.
Yeah.
So let's
Segue.
Yeah. So you launched the. I mean, I messed my camera.
Oh my
Darn
God.
it.
Oh, no.
I should never have touched it. So you guys launched the Weird Wastelands 3 days ago, a week ago. What is time?
Yeah, well, first off, for real, right?
You still have like
June 9th.
Yeah, last.
you still have
So
like
a week
Wednesday.
ago.
you still have like 25 days left on it.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, there's some time left. So,
So when you guys were telling us about it, you pitched it as kind of what did you say? It was like it was kind of Dark Sun meets. I can't remember what it meant, but what's the elevator pitch? The log line on it. It felt a little Numenera-esque to me. But,
It's a little Numenera-esque. The elevator pitch is that the Weird Wastelands are created when like mass arcanized warfare goes wrong, right? So I would draw inspiration from a triangle of influences from He-Man, Masters of the Universe, up through the Mad Max series, all of them, and then Adventure Time for a bit of levity and weirdness, because it's a very very D&D show. And so, like, whereas Dark Sun went with magic, like, saps life out of everything, and that's what created this desert, we went with this wasteland is created because they went and had World War Arcana over here. And this is you're fighting with the proverbial sticks and stones in the aftermath of that.
because everything else is gone. Like,
Yeah.
so hang on before we get into this, I need to rewind there. Is there a deep lore on Eternia that I should know? I don't. I haven't heard Masters of the Universe cited as an inspiration for anything in a while. You got to dive into this. What did you pull from He-Man?
Swords. Laser guns.
I've heard of these. Okay.
Skull-faced villains.
Okay.
Like I'm not a deep dive into Eternia kind of lore. I like the aesthetics of it. I like the Saturday morning cartoon, high octane, kitchen sink. Everything's in here because I like magic to be a bit weird and inexplicable, and you can kind of achieve that if you go like, is it technology of sufficiently advanced kind that it might as well be magic, the Numenera route, or it's like, no, these are spells and magic as you know it, and just like playing in a big sandbox full of every toy you have, and not saying like, oh well, that's sci-fi. I'm not
So
gonna
it's
play with it
fun.
today.
Fun trumps logic. You're like just like a He-Man show. Like who cares where they got the battle tank or the whatever? It's just fun and awesome, and you just want to watch it and be part of it. And
Yeah. Essentially, it's an excuse for that. The post-apocalypse is an excuse to be able to do that. Essentially,
and is Orko in it?
It could be, I suppose.
Anything's possible.
Anything is possible.
I don't like saying no.
No. Yes, and yes, he is, but he's undead.
Right,
He's skull
yeah.
faced. He's so you got a post-apocalyptic. The arcanized warfare is a great term. What is this something that people can just drop into their home game, or is this like a
Yeah. We didn't want something that was like a traditional campaign setting. As much as I like the big coffee table like campaign setting books, at a certain point, like there's only some of that's going to be used to like actually help me run and prep a game, and we just wanted that part. And so, if you remember from the old 3.5 days, like the Frostburn and Sandstorm and I forget the Storm Rack, was like, like this specific environment, these specific kinds of adventures. Here's everything you need. We're going for that, except there's implied setting elements in the random tables and the locations and things like that.
so you could sort of pop this? You could pop a wasteland, a weird wasteland style area anywhere in your home game or whatever pretty easily.
Pretty much, yeah. Whether it's like a region or the whole place, we want it to be modular so that DMs can get what they want out of it, and not feel like, oh, I have to run a very specific kind of game to use this. They could just be like, well, I like this one place.
Like Dark Sun is like this super. Was it Athos? What's the name of it?
Athos,
Yeah, right. That's like it's very specific. Like you're there. You're not like you're not
Right.
bringing that into into Faerun or something.
Yeah.
So this
So
is
like,
it's a
Now,
toolbox.
if you wanted to try to run your own version of Dark Sun, sure,
Sure.
you could use the Weird Wastelands and just, you'd have to do your own homebrew because
Yeah,
it is
you'd have to take
inspired by that. But that was the idea. It's just like however you want to use it, wherever you want to use it.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
So
So there's a lot we're having to like build up around it to make like the survival parts of it, the wilderness exploration parts of it, like engaging and meaningful. But to like circle back and sort of reference how you'd use it in a campaign, I see it a lot like Ravenloft, where Ravenloft is like the mists come, you do a Ravenloft adventure, and then if you're done with it, the mists come and you're back in your campaign world, and you just had this like jaunt into gothic horror for a session or two. And I like to think of it ours like similar to that, where it's like you have a wasteland, you use the book to create this adventure and whatnot, and then you go back to your regular game, or you can stay there and play a whole.
you need to get the sort of MacGuffin from the heart of the wasteland. You do that. That's
Yeah.
5 sessions, then you're back. Or you could have the magic meteor hit your home world and turn it all into a wasteland or whatever or something.
Exactly, yeah, because maybe your group only has like 5 sessions of keeping track of their food and water and all that before it's just not enjoyable to them anymore. But those 5 sessions will be fun. They'll get a kick out of it.
Yeah, people definitely, their ears perked up when they heard you say, "Wow, let's keep track of our rations." Like this is.
Listen, I'm that player, so it would.
But you have a mechanic in this, a die-based mechanic for tracking, for sort of making it abstracting rations and making it meaningful and interesting. What's that all about?
So we wanted to like keep the resource tracking and have it mean something, but not like tedious. You're not like having to do a bunch of long addition, looking up stuff in books, and I mean, even on a VTT, it can still be tedious. So we embrace something called a resource die, where it's like, use an example of a quiver of arrows. Quiver of arrows might be D8, and after the end of every time you use it, end of every fight, you don't keep track of your individual arrows that you used. You just like roll that D8 at the end of a fight. Excuse me. I want to like burp right into the mic, but use that
Etiquette.
D8.
This is
Not that kind of show.
Right.
not yet.
You use that D8, and if it comes up a 1 or a 2, you bump it down to a D6. You've run out of some arrows. In the chaos of battle, maybe you used 1 or 2 more than you thought you did, or one of them broke, or you couldn't find them after you shot them, or something like that.
And then the next
Then after
battle,
the
you
next
roll
one-
the d6, and if that goes down, you steer no d4. You roll that one, you get a 1, you're out of arrows, and you're really
You're
in
out.
trouble.
Yeah, you're just out. Yeah, and so you can do that by saying you have supply, right? You have the supply represents the food, the water, the medicine, the bandages, the stuff that you need for whatever given time period, a day or whatever. And after the end, at certain points, you roll that die, and if it comes up a 1 or a 2, weevils got into the food, or we had a leak in the water skins, or someone drank too much at lunchtime like they weren't supposed to. It's abstract, and then we ask the DM to use their imagination to come up for why the decrease. And then also like maybe they come across a resource that lets them kick it up a die.
Yeah.
A successful hunting trip might increase it or something. So the abstraction's there, but hopefully it's easier to track.
And fun, right? That's the.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing, yeah. Because when I think of all the mechanics that get kind of sloughed off in both in 3.5 and in 5e, I know like in terms of like tracking like the weight of your equipment or tracking like your gold and stuff like that. And I think it's because it just gets treated as like just a number to watch. And I think making it a die roll makes it more interesting and like and it's a lot more fun than like what feels like bookkeeping.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just roll this die. Are you rolling your hit die? Just roll this one too.
Yeah. I mean, there are game structures for combat, right? Like specific game structures. When you say roll initiative, everybody has the same thought in their head. Everybody is like, okay, this is it. What are we gonna do? You're thinking about your combos. The thing you and the mage talked about last time, whatever. So, giving some structure to the other parts of the game was like a main focus for us, and keeping track with your rations and supplies and all this stuff. It becomes like, okay, combat's done. Let's go into post-combat. Check your resources. What happened? Did something slash your backpack in the fight, and now you lost your water skin or your potions or whatever? But it is a structure that hopefully, if you and your players love it, then you can use it, and now that becomes just something that everybody at the table will just drop into the rhythm of it.
It's another mechanic you're all into. And the other nice thing is you're all kind of invested in it. So like if you're the archer, you're probably the only one that's tracking your arrows and that cares. Versus if you're rolling as a group, you know, somebody's like, oh, and you're like, oh man, I'm down to a D4 on my arrows. Like this is serious. Like everybody's similar to initiative. Everybody's kind of invested in that thing. When the mage rolls a 1 on initiative, you're like, oh man, we don't get the fireball off until the last round of combat. Like we have to adjust. It's similar. It's nice. You want everybody to be kind of engaged in whatever the heck is happening, right, across the board. So if it affects the group, it's more interesting.
Yeah, and like, when was the last time your archer ran out of arrows?
Never, because they have quivers tied to their horse and stuff.
Right, they have all the kind of quivers. They got a bag of holding from it. Like, so that is coupled with what we'll have a simplified encumbrance system. That's basically, you know, some variant. This is where our to be written part comes in. But like some variant of a slot based on strength. So you're not having to add up pounds and then compare it to a chart and what's times 4 this and whatever.
You have this many slots you can fill up.
Right. Strength 12. I got 12 slots. Weapons 1. Armors 2.
Boom, 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 boom.
You know, boom, 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 boom. Real quick. I play in a game called Troika where everybody has 12 slots. Doesn't matter what your strength is. Everybody's got 12.
True.
And then you have to roll 2d6 over or under, like, sorry, is it? I know I'm going to get this wrong. Anybody out there who knows Troika. But it's like lower is better. So it's like you're looking to roll, you know, over your inventory slot to pull something out quickly in combat to use it that round. So you could simulate that with like.
So the more stuff you have, the harder it is to get the thing you need.
The harder it is, yeah.
Because you've got 42 javelins strapped to your back and all this stuff.
Exactly right. Like, it's like, do you want to pull out a potion? Then you've got to like do it fast enough. And it's possible you could pull it out and drink it in one action, but if you fail, it's going to take you the whole turn, something like that. So we're looking at things like that to make it more interactive and less bookkeeping, because it's the bookkeeping that is tedious, not the outcomes that running out of resources or stuff to carry, like, you know.
So what's up?
There's a reason Tensor's floating disk exists. At some point, someone was like, I can't carry all these copper pieces.
Yeah. Right?
You know?
A bag of holding and all.
So, all that stuff, yeah.
So there's some exploration in provisions rules. There's a new class, right? The Scion.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly.
Yes.
What's
on that Scion.
What's the deal with the Scion?
What's the deal with the Scion? I don't know. Sorry, just for some reason it sounded like Jerry Seinfeld in my head. Jerry Seinfeld. Anyway, now I get it. Now, oh god, I can't help myself. I'm sorry.
The door.
Anyway, I'll be out in just a second. I've been working on the Scion almost exclusively for the last few months, and let me tell you something. I understand why Wizards just was like threw their hands up and were like, let's just make subclasses. Like, you know, designing a class is very hard. And so I was looking at the 2nd edition, the 3.5 Scion, the UA that came out, like the full 20 levels and all that. And I wanted to do something that wasn't those things. And the thing about those things is they mostly feel just like another caster. I would say the newer UA Scion is the least, because it's, you know, you get like 5 abilities with each discipline that you get, but that was just too much. Like, I played a couple of Scions using that, and while I thought it was cool to be able to do anything, that's the problem with what they did, is they made like
Superman.
why would you want to be anything else, like, when you could be Superman? And so I kind of went with the opposite, like a more minimalist approach, I would say. I kind of took a little bit of from the newer Mystic, as far as like each discipline is like 3 abilities. There's like a baseline free thing that you can do, and then you spend points to make that more potent. So it's more about bolstering what you have. So I took more inspiration from like X-Men and Dune and Akira, where it's when you see, or Jedi especially, when you see them, they usually have a very limited set of skills.
Their
right?
toolkit's small but potent.
But potent, and so that's what I wanted to try to portray. So in this, you could pick multiple disciplines throughout, but you're not going to be that good, because you can't put your psi limit is based on how many ranks you have in that discipline. So if you just max out 2 disciplines, that's 5 in each. So you have 2 things you can do really well. I can do telekinesis, and I can do like psychoportation. So I'm teleporting all over the place, and I'm picking stuff up and throwing people, and that's what you do. So that's kind of the approach I went with, and we're still working on it. Gonna work on some like mastery abilities. Like if you do max out the discipline, you get a little extra something. And also, just working on some feats to try to round it all out. I really like the 3 subclasses we have so far. I don't know if that's going to be it, but we'll see. Again, we're still writing on this. But I hope everyone likes it.
So what else do you have in
the
the toolbox? You got a scion, you got
Yeah.
some exploration rules. You have some setting, some setting content.
Yep.
What else? What else is in there?
We got I don't know. Do you want to cover all the player stuff? The rest of the player stuff?
Sure.
Pro?
Yeah, sure. We're gonna have a subclass for each of the main classes. Just so for anybody knows, we can't do artificer because it's not part of the SRD or whatever it is. And so just to give you some examples, in the actual thing is the promo is the Circle of the Broken Land, which is a druid that is attached to a destroyed landscape that is angry and wounded and just wants to lash out. So imagine being the conduit for that.
That's
right?
a fun story.
Right?
Like right there, that already that character's interesting.
That's a lot of flavor.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So you are the vessel of vengeance for a broken land.
Vessel of vengeance. I want to be a vessel of vengeance.
Yeah. We're going to do a kind of a MacGyver-like ranger. Like imagine being able to sift through all the scrap and the refuse of whatever's left behind and be able to kind of cobble together weapons and armor and whatever. So it's kind of, MacGyver, but,
Yep.
in D&D.
With a hood.
With a hood, yeah, of course. We're doing something that me and Jim have been talking about forever, which is a strength-based rogue called the Enforcer. Okay, so when you got all these thieves guild, why would you hire a dumb fighter when you could hire some beef of your own that knows how to sneak around?
This is the kneecapper. He go like
the kneecapper. You bring back the sap, if you want to knock people out, and maybe I don't know. Like we're still writing stuff out, but just like, what about being able to do sneak attack damage through grappling? Like coming up behind someone, getting them in a chokehold, and you just drag them back in the shadows like Batman.
Yeah.
These are the things that we're tossing around, like, because you've never seen that. Like,
but you should have.
Batman.
It's like why that it seems like it's a gaping hole
in
the
obvious, right? Because if you want to be Batman, you got to be like a fighter, rogue, monk kind of thing. When with this, if you're just attacking from hidden,
that's awesome.
That's a lot of sweet damage. So anyway, then we have like just to give you an idea of like the wizard is the techno wizard. So again, this is kind
I
of.
want to party with that guy. He's like
exactly. Hey, if you lose a limb in the wasteland, you want to go see the techno wizard because he can throw something together for you. And also just like thinking of like technomancy spells, like one that we have on the drawing boards, which is what was it? Mobile conveyance or mobile conveyance.
Sure.
We don't have the specific name for it, but just like a tiny hut, but for a car. So you just cobble together like a dome of crap, and then the wizard's in the middle and all still, like in his gyroscope, and everyone else on the inside, he's just like, well, hang on, and you start trundling through the waste as everybody's like spinning and hurling, and I don't know, I just think that's hilarious. It can carry 5 people, not comfortably.
Not comfortably, but you'll get there. How do you guys how do you play test this stuff and balance it and make sure you're not breaking the game too much?
Yeah, so for me, my first attitude is like it's okay if it gets a little broken, like a little roughed up, it's okay. And in some ways, part of what we'll have is just a lot of weird stuff that maybe you've never seen in a 5th edition product. We just don't want it to be boring, even if it might seem a little off balance. We have our own instincts in terms of just like what would this be like at play, and and how does this seem like it would play. We're working with 2C Gaming. They're helping us manage the project and do editing, and so they've got their designers on it. We're working with Celeste Konowich, is one of our designers who's going to be that we're working with. They have Brian Service as well, so they have their own sort of system for playtesting and balancing that we're relying on. But a lot of this is like proceeding with an acknowledgement that like balance is as much an art as it is a science.
Yeah.
And it's what's fun and engaging for one table can be disastrous for another. And like, as designers ourselves, we want to account for as much as we can, but if we accounted for everything, we would give you something unwieldy and unplayable. And so there are parts where there's like, yeah, we would have liked to have filled this in with some sort of procedure or mechanic or perfect precision and balance, but like that might not make a fun product. From a design point of view, it might be just too much. So what we don't want to do is leave a DM hanging by suggesting something would happen or suggesting that there's a procedure and then not providing anything. Yeah. So like, for instance, we've got in the location some of the alchemical contagions, these sort of magical diseases that you can get from drinking or being pushed into or whatever, this sour, rotten alchemical sludge. And one of them's like, you're infected with an elemental imbalance. You have a pool of 30 d6 of fire, lightning, and radiant damage that's gonna go off in an hour, centered on you, and out to a radius of like 20 feet or something. Right? That's a lot, right? That's a lot of damage. But at any point between then, you can use your action to take as many of those d6 as you want, 1 or 2, 7, 10. Go find some enemies and blow yourself up. Go out into the middle of nowhere and just like a little bit at a time and have the cleric come over and heal you. Like, that's awesome. You just have to deal with this 30 d6 of damage, and you're gonna take it. But how much and when and how often is up to you. Like, that's a fun story. That's a fun story driver. That session suddenly just got a lot more lively. Right, and as opposed to, you failed your save. Here's, let me take out my giant pound of d6 to kill you with. It's a time bomb instead of a landmine.
But it's a time bomb you can do. There's going to be some ridiculous shenanigans that players are going to get up to with that. That they're going to throw the this tainted barbarian right into the middle of the thing. There's going to be some awesome, epic, memorable moments that happen because they fell in the sludge, and they're going to start force feeding it to goats and then using them.
Catapults.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, that's hey, if that's what happens, then we've succeeded. That's what we want. So we just don't want it to be boring.
It sounds like anything but boring. It sounds like we're living up to the weird wastelands for sure.
It almost feels like every one of these options like comes with their own plot hooks.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah, I want to start playing there.
Yeah. One of my favorites is the one that sort of sends you into a catatonic stupor while you experience visions of and like get to ask your DM, and the DM has none of this cryptic phrase or weird rhyme that your DM's not going to know anyway. Just like, hey DM, I'm a player to DM. In the fiction, this is my character experiencing visions. I'd like some answers to these questions. Now, there's a risk that my character is going to take some damage as they try to grasp and hold on to these visions they're perceiving as like unfiltered divination magic flows through their mind. And they can't move. They're incapacitated for a number of hours. But like, you could get some answers. You might seek this place out. And
I like the idea of kind of bypassing, like just literally talking straight to the DM. Be like, listen, I just need 2 straight answers.
Just some answers,
I
please,
just
DM.
need, like, I'm tired of this, like these riddles and rhymes. Or just like, just please, just tell me, like, that's a fun. None of this asking the DM to predict the future with like augury or others. It's just you want answers. This is magic. We can make it happen. That's fun. So
answers. I want the truth.
So you've got a bunch. So you have a bunch of stuff in here about for shoring up wilderness exploration, whatnot. This begs a bigger question. Why do you think if D&D, if 5th edition is supposed to be 3 pillars, right? Combat, role playing, exploration. Why is there such minimal support for exploration? Like there's hundreds of pages for combat. There's a little bit for social, but there's like a chart somewhere that you might be able to find for exploration. Like, why is there no? How is this a pillar, but there's no actual support for it?
it's worse than that. I see. Like, not to be a pessimist about it, but like they're because they because like parts of wilderness exploration, like tracking rations, is tedious.
Yep.
You have options like the Outlander background that says if you don't want to have to worry about that, just take this and you feed your party automatically. So it's like it's not even that they're not even providing support for it, and then they're including things to bypass it because they understand that in prior editions it's been tedious, and it is.
Right.
You can be a weirdo like me that doesn't mind doing the math, but I'm nevertheless tedious. And like, and at the same time, there's enough there in between the PHP and the DMG and Xanathars and others that you could cobble together something, but it's scattered, contradicts itself, and like it's not in the SRD.
And it's not
So
necessarily
if-
fun, or
yeah,
like
it's
they
not-
didn't like.
well, that's the other thing.
They didn't go out of their
It has
way
no
to make
content.
it like dungeon crawling is awesome. You say hex crawling, and most people are just like, oh man, you know, I gotta
Yeah.
go. This is, or whatever.
Yeah.
There's just not like, you know, you don't, and it should be right. You should be
It
excited
should be.
for
I've played and run in games where it was.
that
as
journey.
hex crawl,
Is
yeah.
you know, it should be a whole huge part of the thing. And so
Yeah.
why didn't they like? What's going on?
I honestly think, I don't know if it has anything. I mean, video games I think do influence. I mean, fourth edition was evidence of that.
Yeah.
In my opinion, right? That was the snake finally eating its own tail of being like, let's just make something like World of Warcraft. It's like, but that's where they came from, you know, like no, you're supposed to set the standard, not pick up theirs.
Yeah.
So like this, I think it's one of the strangest things where in 5e the drive seems to be like you need to just go be a big damn hero, and big damn heroes don't have time to walk around. They don't have time.
Right.
Like they have fast travel, right?
They get on a griffin and they show up in the thing, and
They're
you're
gone,
there.
right?
Boom.
But that just goes against everything that we've ever been taught. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. That's the adventure. Like otherwise, like, you know, they would have taken the Eagles to Mordor and just dropped the ring in. And that would have been boring. Like no, the whole adventure of Lord of the Rings is the journey. And so that's what we're trying to like bring back, you know, and like I said,
and it's perfect for it's like you have the long-term goal, and then there's each session, there's a stop along the way that's each session. Like you can totally break Lord of the Rings up into a bunch of game sessions. You're like, it totally arcs out. Like it was a well-crafted arc. They knew exactly where they're going. They had fun little side quests along the way, those things, and it's like
They had to cut the shopping session in Brie out of the movies.
Yeah, yeah.
It just wasn't
it
interesting.
just got out of control.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, it's funny that we ended up on Lord of the Rings because, like, playing through Adventures in Middle Earth, which is a 5e hack, was what like kind of opened my eyes. Because before that, I was like, yeah, 5th edition just isn't built for this. You know, like they didn't put enough support in. But then Adventures in Middle Earth goes and says, like, well, okay, this is a 5e game. We're building this whole world about playing in Middle Earth, and here's how you do a journey. And wouldn't you know it, there's a hex map, and you count them up, and you figure out how far it is between locations, and then there's a whole procedure you work through. It accounts for like conditions under which you leave, whether you leave in a thunderstorm and everybody's gloomy and depressed. And they add a new condition called miserable that represents like just you're miserable.
Yep.
This is terrible to be out here. There's no comforts from home.
Yeah.
And like
emotional exhaustion.
Yeah, to represent them traveling through Mirkwood or over the Misty Mountains. And it was playing through those that was like, this is meaningful, it's engaging, it balances out the mechanics of 5th edition so that it's not every time you run across an enemy, it's a cakewalk because you're refreshed and ready to go. It's like a journey wears you down. It's possible to arrive at your adventure site with levels of exhaustion and
There's
missing
consequences.
hit dice,
There's
consequences.
meaningful choices.
Yeah.
There's engaging gameplay. There's part of the story that you'll enjoy. Not
I feel like there's a couple things like that in like base 5e, particularly when you get to like the Outer Plains. If you're talking about like when you go to like Elysium or something like that, and it's like you need to roll to figure out if like you even feel like ever leaving this place. Like they're
good.
Yeah, there are little hints, but you kind of have to go out of your way to find them. But like there are sections in the source book where there's some like really interesting kind of plot hooky mechanics that aren't just combat.
Yeah, some of the stuff in Tasha's was like that too, the supernatural environments, and
awesome.
That's why it's a weird wasteland. Like, that's why we're like, not this place is soaked in magic. It's not just that it's a desert and a badlands. It's those, but it's also like eldritch storms and arcane weather, and this thing might give you a new flaw, right? Like we want to engage not just the combat section, but people that like role-playing things, and so providing those contexts and engagement on multiple levels of not just like it's tough from a mechanical perspective, you got to do character optimization, like if you want, but it's also there for people who don't want that there's something interesting for it, because it's like we can't stay out in this rain, it's going to give us a flaw that we don't want. Right, like it's going to curse us if we're out here too long, and then if you have to live with the consequences of that as well. So yeah, we want a full spectrum experience as much as possible.
Well, I'm excited to see what you come up with and how your fixes for it in Weird Wastelands.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I'm excited for you guys to see it.
Yeah. I like the journey. I mean, that's for me, a big part. It's an excuse to set up terrain each time.
Hell yes.
We've been wanting to do. We've been wanting to do. Tyler and I have talked about like doing a campaign, like a short one where you're like a military detachment that gets like separated and like stuck behind enemy lines and like having to like survive back there, and like like the idea of like having to manage your supplies sounds like it would slot really well into that and kind of like add some extra urgency.
Well, because there's consequences suddenly to that water. And
you can never just go like, I mean, you're going to stop at a town eventually, so you'll just restock on everything. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
There's nothing like that.
Town.
Yeah. The wastelands, everybody's thirsty. Everybody's hungry.
Oh, it's that kind of
that kind of game.
That kind of game.
Everybody's bards and tieflings.
Right.
So this is your first Kickstarter, right?
Sure is.
Yes.
So what's that experience like? Are you guys thirsty?
We've been thinking about doing our own first Kickstarter soon. So if you have any advice,
I heard you guys might get into that. Like I heard about that. You know what? I think it's going to work out well for you. So I'm hopeful.
How's it like? You're a week in to the journey. How are your supplies holding up? How are you? Have you hit miserable yet?
Right. I was sort of like, I've been working on this project for more or less a year in some cases. Like I was like, if we're gonna do this, I gotta somebody get myself in shape writing wise, and help me hold myself accountable, kind of thing. And so I've been like, for me it was almost a relief when it went live. I was like, oh god, we've done a lot of work to get started. And Emma, our CEO and comms director and social media manager and general gopher everything, did a lot of the work to help get us ready for it. 2C as well helped us out immensely. So like having people who we could come to with like, how should we handle this, or like what should the Kickstarter story be, like I can't imagine doing it just by myself. I'd probably be a wreck.
It's kind of cheating to have whole support structure. It's not even fair. Yeah, that was really smart.
It didn't like sweat and lose sleep too much, but it's nevertheless a little nerve-wracking, as well as inspiring. Like it's really motivating to me to see the support out there.
Yeah, I described the night before. It's like the night before Christmas and finals, all wrapped into one. Just like sheer joy and terror in equal, parts. And I did not sleep. So,
Well, it's scary.
Yeah,
It's you're putting a thing out in the world that's yours, that you care about. And there's those voices in your head. They're like, what if everybody hates it? What if nobody shows up to the party? What if what if they see all the problems with it? What if they, there's all these like these crazy, the chattering monkey mind that's back there. That's just like, has making up all this nonsense that is like,
it's just not true. Yeah, it's there, and like I think you just sort of have to tell yourself, like, you know what, like you can just go shut the hell up. Like, I'm going to listen to these other voices, these other, like from in me and from others who are telling me this is great. Like, and so like I'm really grateful for the support that WebDM has and that we've built up. And like, we've been wanting to release a Kickstarter for a while, and we knew it was going to do well. The specifics of that we weren't quite sure on, but we wanted it to be something that, we were ready for, and that we could like really share something with our audience and with others who are maybe hearing about us for the first time.
So you're at like what, 2,200 backers or something? I don't know. I haven't checked it today. You're a week in with well over 2,000 backers.
I'm gonna hit the thing so I can get the Kickstarter link in chat real quick so I can check.
Yeah, 23.
Wow. 2320.
Yeah, 2320. Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's yeah.
So
that's,
what do you
that is-
do you guys have do you have stretch goal content planned if if you keep cooking along? Like what are you looking at? There's another 3 weeks in the campaign. What do you have?
Yeah.
Can you
I'm not gonna-
tease anything that we got cooking?
I
Yes.
don't want to share Emma's secrets, but yes.
Yeah, well, we were instructed by multiple people to always keep some in your back
Some
pocket.
of them,
and
yeah,
never show
yeah.
all your cards. So
Yeah.
yes, there's some very exciting things coming down the pipeline. Should we pass said goals?
Is there any of them that you can talk about, or are there any goals that you can say, hey, if we get to 300K, we've got something really awesome or whatever? Is there anything, any nuggets you can give people?
Yeah, let me look at where we're at right now so that I don't go like, well, and then like be an idiot and be like, with Jim, you already got that one.
Yeah, I already did that one.
So yeah.
Yeah, you're a little over 180K so far.
Yeah, a little over 180K, and then at 200, we're unlocking the weird dice, and beyond that, the only hint that I am really comfortable giving is that the book's title is Worlds of WebDM, Weird
Whoa.
Wasteland, emphasis on the plural, and so we
Yeah.
hope to give you a little taste
So
at some point soon about what the worlds might be.
Spelljammer confirmed. Got this.
Oh man.
I mean,
Okay.
All right.
I
Somebody
mean,
asked.
you
Sorry.
can wish upon a star all you want,
Okay.
but
No, I don't. I really don't want.
Somebody
Spelljammer.
asked earlier if you would adapt Spelljammer for us because Nate has a sort of running gag in the stream that he absolutely hates Spelljammer, even though all of our audience likes it.
Yeah, Spelljammer's everybody's session. Everybody's setting to like want back. They're thirsty for it.
I don't.
I've
There's
run 2 Spelljammer campaigns, one on
What is it, Nate?
Twitch.
real.
What is
What
it?
is it?
Come on.
You're not
Are
feeling
the weird dice the ones that are like multicolored?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
I actually want to show these real quick because
these
I
are
saw
weird.
them. I saw them in the.
Yeah.
Is it okay if I show the picture of them?
I think so. Yeah, I think everything.
I saw them in the things of assets, and I saw that, and I was like, these are pretty cool looking. All right, I'm
If
gonna.
it's in the assets folder, it's good.
All right, cool. Yeah, so these are these like cool little like splotchy like multicolored dice. So they got like the double W's on the D6 at least.
Those.
Yeah.
They're gonna.
Yeah, we got those.
Yeah, the high number, has at least for D6 and probably D20.
I think we might
Yeah.
have a different pick of those somewhere.
They're gonna blow
They're-
up.
They're very reminiscent of these. They're gonna look like that. I think we might have replaced the green with orange, but
Yeah.
it's this similar sort of splotchy
Is it acrylic? Is it metal? Is it the
Yeah.
bones of your enemies?
Metal dice?
Metal.
metal dice. Yeah, and then the others are stone, I believe.
Yeah,
I heard that. I saw one of the comments. They're like a little worried about like how durable are the stone dice going to be, and then they're like, oh wait, no, you're going to have metal dice too. So, well, it's
Yeah, metal
stone.
dice.
Like
I mean,
how-
wouldn't use stone and metal together, but
Yeah, I
I
would-
think
I would
stone dice. I
recommend
think
that.
that's good.
I have multiple sets of stone dice, and I keep them separated. I keep them separated by plastic or something else, and I roll in a dice tray, and I've never had an issue with chipping or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, that's my experience.
All right.
heavy or light metal, like aluminum or steel heavy. James Dawson wants to know.
Probably zinc or.
That's a good question.
I think
James.
mica.
Let me see. Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, honestly. Titanium or lead.
Yes, they're
which is
tungsten.
made of lead.
Tungsten. Depleted uranium. It's great.
Yeah.
They were shot
I'm
from
not
an
sure what
A10
kind of metal
Warthog.
they are.
And they,
Depleted uranium.
These dice go.
Yeah,
The internet
it'll
loves
create
that
a
right
wasteland of your.
yeah,
your
you
bedroom.
can create a wasteland of it. Really, it's method role playing. You can
Yeah,
really,
really trying to get
die
to
of
a worse
radiation sickness. Like,
What
it'd be good.
Yeah, sorry, James. I'm not sure about light or heavy metals.
Have there been any surprises for you in the Kickstarter so far? Is there any is this what you thought it would be? Is there is it just like a D&D campaign? It's going exactly how you planned it every session, or what?
I mean, like, I'm surprised we broke through our early stretch goals so quickly. Like, I knew we'd do well. I knew we'd fund and to be like, oh, great, like lots of support. But like, I wasn't quite ready for like, wow, that fast. It's a good thing we kept some of them secret. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we would run out of stretch goals.
Did you already blow past what you thought your ceiling was going to be?
Not yet. No.
Okay.
But it certainly shuts up those voices in your head, a bunch of them, of like when you blow through stuff on that first, you have that explosive first day. You guys, came out of the gate really strong. So it's got to be like, okay, we can, we're on this. Let's rock and roll.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah. What
It's good. Like I'm a big Kickstarter supporter. I love both. Whether it's like somebody's first time they're making a zine or something, or it's like big fancy board games or modular terrain for your tabletop, or all kinds of things, right? Like, I like seeing creative people get a chance to do something and share in that, and so it's really exciting to be on the other end of that experience.
Yeah, there's some stuff that you back because you really want to use it, and there's some stuff that you back just because you want to see it happen.
Yep.
Like,
I want this to exist.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, for me, I absolutely love Kickstarter, on both sides, both as a backer and as a creator. You're perusing people's dreams, right? There's all these things that wouldn't exist if people didn't say, hey, I want to throw some money at that and make it real. And it's just, it's great. It's cool to see all the stuff that people are cooking and, just trying to make come to life. And some of it really stands out. And some of it totally just succeeds into failure. And like, there's, it's a wild, across the boards. It's a pretty wild, it's a weird wasteland, or not wasteland, a weird dreamland, I guess. It's like, it's my favorite. I don't know. There's nothing like it. Especially, have you learned anything from other Kickstarters that you've backed, or what to do or what not to do, or any Kickstarters that inspired you guys?
A lot of Monty Cook Games Kickstarters been inspiration for us, and a few years ago we started working with them. We wrote a sort of a foreword to one of their books, and then helped out with the Kickstarter to that. And since then we've had sort of a back and forth favors kind of thing. And so it's been interesting to sort of get a glimpse inside how they do things, and to kind of have a chance to pick their brains at times and say, oh, hey, while we're here at this convention, do you have a minute? And kind of like see how what their insights are. I think like the thing that I've learned is that it pays to be a social media presence and do good networking and keep your good reputation for yourselves, and work with people, and like all of those years of us. And this is where Emma's work has really helped us, is that sort of behind the scenes work of, hey, we'd love to work together, or we'd be happy to help you guys out with this, and like building up just a network of people who all have a passion about this hobby. And that's been really, like, to feel like that, like a part of that has been really enjoyable for me.
Well, and then to be able to call on all these people to signal boost, finally, like.
Like that's
you've been doing your part for all these years, and finally, like, okay, it's my turn. Hey, over here.
Right. Yeah, it pays, and it's very satisfying to feel like, okay, well, this is reciprocal. Like, hit us up next time you got a thing, and same for us. And it's exciting to be a part of that, especially because, like, as a hobbyist, I've been a role player and DM for years, and I've always sort of an outsider's view of it. So it's weird to feel like I'm like, I don't know, making a game designer, making a book, and my final nerd form.
Is this the final one? You don't even know, right? Because there's like anything could happen.
Yeah, there you go.
Have you guys? Do you have anything planned for? I don't even know how to say it. Sort of harnessing this. You have you've 2,300 backers. Do you have anything planned to? Take advantage isn't the right word. I guess for me, with our Kickstarters, like having all of these super dedicated people there, like a fire hose of information of saying like, hey, we want this, do this, all that stuff. Like, that's one of the best things to me, is that's just this like immediate. It's this focus group of like super into it people who are our target demographic. And so to be able to listen to, we have a whole bunch of people sort of combing the comments for all this sort of, and trying to say, like, distill it down into like the most useful stuff. Because there's a lot of, there's a lot of noise in among it.
Yeah.
But be able to take that in and then sort of adjust what we're doing based on that is huge for us. Are you doing anything similar? Do you have any, like, what's that like?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, we're definitely like want the feedback. That's partly why we have a fairly meaty preview, and it's you got like this little sample of everything. If there's anything that our audience sees, or the backers rather see, like that they're just like nope, like absolutely not. Like that's useful information. That's valuable. At the moment, this feels like an Emma question of what kind of how we're gathering the feedback sort of thing. But I know for me, I really value it. And I valued it on our videos, and I valued it in other things. Being able to adjust and I'll use an analogy. Like, you could DM, and I could do everything my way, right? Like, I'm a DM. This is how it's going to happen. No, I don't really care about what my players feel like. They're here to play my game, and like that doesn't. I don't want to buy a product like that. I want to buy something where there's some, willingness to hear what the audience would like or not like. So yeah, it's valuable to me to know, because, like, I personally don't want to write something people are going to hate.
Right. Good for you.
That's not in my wheelhouse yet. Maybe later.
Well, it's so fun to write a setting that nobody wants to be in, or write these interesting mechanics that nobody wants to use, or have these offer people this toolkit that nobody wants to like implement. Like, that's the whole point of this is to release out in the wild and have it used.
Yeah,
it definitely is an interesting thing, because you need to be able to have enough confidence and enjoy your own work enough that you can say that, like, you're making it for yourself, and like what really matters is that you're happy with it. But at the same time, you can definitely take that too far to where, you're not actually paying attention to whether it's actually addressing the needs of the people you're hoping to sell it to. It's definitely a balancing act. I think we've seen a couple times. Well, it's like the director of, if anybody's familiar with Troll 2, the director of Troll 2, who, it's a horrendous film where I
know what you're talking about. Yeah.
They named it Troll 2 to try and piggyback off of Troll being a successful movie, but like it's not related at all. That guy,
Nilbog?
Yeah. He still defends to the death that it's like a great film, and he wouldn't listen to anybody telling him like, hey, this isn't actually how the English language works or anything like that. So there's definitely a point where that confidence can backfire.
But then again, there's Tommy Wiseau in the room. Who knows? Right? Like,
that's a whole different.
Well, that's a fascinating thing, because if he had been a little more talented, he might not have been as successul.
Yeah, he definitely would.
Yeah.
So speaking of being successful, what makes this one? What makes your setting special? Like, why? There's a lot of people have been churning out a lot of 5e settings and source books and the like. Why is Weird Wastelands?
It's not trad fantasy. It's not Waddle and Daub villages and taverns and good kings and things like that. It's the catastrophe that happens after all of that gets blown up. And my pitch is like, the medicine is the survival stuff. It's the need to like keep track of your rations and worry about being out in the sun too long and like dealing with magical diseases, and like the candy is all the fun toys you can recover out here, because this place is a treasure trove of battlefields and old strongholds and places to loot. And so
there's magic items, there's like
magic items, there's custom spells and all kinds of things. You can make stuff out of what you find. Our first stretch goal is like war wagons and vehicular combat for your Fury Road needs, and like we want to, like, it's already broken, the setting's already destroyed. You don't have to worry about playing nice with it. You don't have to worry about upsetting the flavor of your DM's world. You can trash this place.
So really, it's a toolbox.
Yeah.
You're saying this is we're just giving you guys a cool toolbox lots of flavor, lots of cool story hooks, but mostly it's just a toolbox. Here's a bunch of
Yeah, yeah. I find that like if I'm gonna play a game that has sort of harsh survival element to it, then I want it accompanied by a bit of a freewheeling sense of what the players can do once they do get their hands on some resources.
Yeah.
And we definitely want to encourage that kind of attitude in the players. Like, if you take a look at the alchemical sump that's in the thing, like, dredge it. What's at the bottom of that? You could find a clone for yourself that you can use in case you die.
You could
Or
find
like-
a clone.
Right, like you could find an inert flesh golem that you just
Yeah.
got to bring to life, or an undead allosaurus that you can use as a mount. It doesn't need to drink, you know. Like, it's it's things like that. We want to just
That's indeed
give-
weird. I love it. It's
give permission to just sort of like loosen up your game a bit and accept the good and the bad. Like, some of these things are inconvenient. You're not going to want to have to deal with, like, okay, you can't move anymore because crystals are growing out of your joints. Like, you're just going to have to get through this without actually moving.
how do you get
But you can you can
You can not move.
Yeah.
not move.
Remember that tensors floating disk we were talking about?
Right, yeah, exactly.
Hopefully you have a scion
hopefully
with you
you don't
that
have
can
to go
just pick
somewhere
you up.
quickly.
Yeah.
Telekinesis you out of there.
But that's accompanied by suitably enjoyable and interesting and engaging rewards that, like, yeah, that's what we want.
High stakes, high rewards,
Yeah, yeah,
and all sorts of shenanigans.
yeah, yeah.
Cool. Well, let's go to our let's do our giveaway on our fan build. Give these guys a 2-minute break, and then we'll come back after having talk. Let's go talk broad about
Yeah.
DM advice and prepping and world building, and get some questions from the audience.
Cool.
Anybody lining up their hardball? What is it? A 7-10 split on these guys?
I've seen a couple interesting questions. There was one actually that I think is a pretty quick thing regarding the Kickstarter itself. Maybe we should get out of the way now. They're wondering if there would be like Kickstarter backers like listed in the back of the book or anything for this one.
That's a good question. That's a good question. I don't know that we've discussed or thought of that. My instinct
mean,
is to,
I-
like, I usually like that, but
Yeah.
I think with an
it
option
should
if you
be.
don't want your name in it, sure.
It's fun to see your name.
I like seeing my name.
Yeah.
And convert everyone's names to like old dwarven or elven, and we just sprinkle
People
them
use their
throughout the
names
book.
as a random generator.
You got to try and figure out which one is yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's my elf name? What's my
That's a good question. Thank you for asking, because I had yet to really think of that. So, yeah,
Awesome.
we'll let you
nice
guys know.
Good one. All right, let's do our giveaway and our fan build, and then we'll come back with
right,
advice. Love
Perfect.
advice.
All right. So the fan build today is actually it's a fun one.
We should do the word for the giveaway,
giveaway?
first, right? So they can enter it while we
Let's do the word for the giveaway.
Yeah.
What is a good word for the giveaway?
I don't know.
Should we
Jim Prue, what's a good word for the giveaway?
He's gone. They're gone.
Sassafras.
Oh, there we go. He's back. He's back. All right. I'm gonna put
Perfect.
sassafras in here.
Sassafras.
That's gonna be All right. Let me see if I know how to spell it. That's gonna be let's go with Sassafras. So double S's both times it can happen. It'll be sassafras. We're gonna be giving away here. It's international available. If you're international, you can only get the $50 gift cards because we can't ship stuff internationally very easily. If you're in the U.S., you can choose between either a $50 gift card for the store or a basic Caverns Core, which is a nice little starter set to kind of start seeing what you can do with the cave systems. Let's see if I can get you.
All right. Well,
Raise
what do
up.
we have for fan builds while people are getting their sassafras queued up?
Well, actually, you know what? Speaking of the Caverns Core, I thought it would be kind of fun to do somebody's first build today. This was posted on the forums by Octavius from
exciting.
Gilgamesh, also known as the Last Space Vagabond. This is only like 4 sets, 4 or 5. This is with a Caverns Core, a Camp Pack, a Stalagmite Pack, I think
It's got
a Chasm Pack.
Yeah, I see KS2
Yeah.
Heroes and Pieces. Wait, there's some Dread Hollow.
Yeah, and just like a little bit of Dread Hollow. And this is their first build with their first sets.
Awesome.
2 S's at the end, yes. What everybody's writing in there, like I'm seeing the correct spelling for pretty much everybody. So
5 S's total.
Yeah, 5 S's total. But
insane.
it looks like I'm seeing that we got 57 eligible people so far, so people are getting it right.
It's a fun build. Also, it's great to illustrate how you can mix and match like caverns and wilderness. Rocks go with everything. It's the moral of the story. Rocks for the win.
This isn't a crazy buy-in. You know, this is somebody's first purchase, and you can make a couple different things with this too. Like this isn't the only thing you can do with these pieces. I think it's a very good example of what you can do when you're starting off. So I don't know if they watch these streams or not, but they did post it on the forums. So if you want to say anything about it, this build is posted on the forums under the cool photos of DF sets board.
Perfect.
We need to figure out if we want to rename anything in the forums at some point or do any reorganization.
But yeah, we have so many other things.
It's a whole thing. Updating forums is so hard. We got a lot of stuff to talk about.
This is awesome. It's nice to see new people coming in and doing builds and sharing them.
We've had a fair amount of new people coming in the last couple months. It's something we were talking about. It was like, not sure what it is because we haven't we're a ways after our last Kickstarter. But for some reason, we've been pulling in like a fair amount of new people lately, and it's been really cool to see them getting their first stuff and building with them. Is there a non-cool photos of DF sets board? Not that I'm aware of. I'm not sure. I'm not sure we have any use for it.
Give you my brother's builds.
Yeah. Okay. He doesn't watch this, right?
No.
Okay. Good. Yeah. Say whatever you want.
Yeah.
All right. 59 eligible people.
He's a mesoscopic physicist that can't build with
metascopic.
Yeah.
What is metascopic?
Mesoscopic. It's the physics of a medium size. It's between quantum mechanics.
Why is he called a medium physicist?
Because science people want to have cool words.
Okay, use the Starbucks system, like a venti physicist or something.
He can't put a couple of pieces of terrain together. He's working on nanotech, but he can't just put 2 blocks together.
Susalam, you have not missed the giveaway. If you want to enter the giveaway, just type Sassafras. We're gonna roll it in 30 seconds. SASSFRASS. You can copy it up above. Yeah. So I'll give you a little bit of time. I'll at least let Susalam get in there because they haven't gotten in yet. And then I will roll it a couple seconds. Cool. Susalam is in. All right. Let's
Sassafras.
Sassafras.
Last call for Sassafras. Get it while it's cold.
Right.
While it's hot. What temperature do you consume sassafras?
I don't know.
Don't you eat it?
I'm not sure it's actually eligible or edible.
I'm thinking of sarsaparilla. Isn't sassafras what they make? I don't know. What?
I genuinely don't know.
Yeah.
I think more succotash.
Yeah.
I watched enough Looney Tunes. Was it Looney Tunes? Wait, what is Tweety Bird?
I don't know.
Sylvester.
Prue, what the heck is sassafras?
Yeah, you got any answers for us, Prue? I turned you back on. What is sassafras?
At 0 degrees Kelvin.
I only know it because my mom's from Louisiana, and I know that it's used in Creole cooking. Now, her family's not Creole, but Creole adjacent through marriage. So
Creole adjacent.
It's the only reason I know that word is going to family things.
So it's a spice?
It's a plant.
Sassafras.
Apparently, sarsaparilla.
They put sassafras in there this time, just giving that background. It's just a word that I think is funny because it has a lot of S's.
Apparently, sarsaparilla is made from sassafras, which just seems comical.
It's the best.
It's an incredible sentence.
Yeah.
Let's roll this giveaway.
You had yourself a Sioux City sarsaparilla yet?
No.
Nope.
All right. Let's roll this giveaway.
Let's do it.
Hey, Kodiak Bear's here. Hi, Kodiak.
Kodiak.
All right, here we go.
Love to see you tuning in. Hope you continue to recover.
Merc90. Merc90 won the giveaway.
Merc.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and assume that Merc doesn't need a basic caverns core. And it's probably gonna go with the
gift card.
with the gift card. Merc90, longtime watcher, actually has one of the photos in the fan build section. Of a massive.
Congrats.
All right, so let's
Awesome.
let's ask these guys some
Excellent.
questions. About...
Merc, I have messaged you. We'll work out what you want and how to get it to you. And then, hey, Dragon Day. Oh, don't apologize, Dragon Day. It's all good. We're actually just about to start the Q&A, so in a way, this is the perfect time to get to the stream.
So, all right, let's. I got lots. I want to pick your brains about lots of things, but I want to start with. I think I have a fun one here. So, Jim, we got to play some D&D together during our Wildlands Kickstarter, and you played Gorgon Rex, the dwarf champion monster hunter.
That was so good.
And for whatever reason, he's like burned into my brain. I don't know. I remember his name.
It was an iconic. Just
like,
bringing that wyvern down into the.
Yeah. You at one point you dual wielded grappling hooks because you saw a Crimson Claw wyvern, right? You're a monster hunter, and you kind of were like, stoically and gruffly like kind of working your way through, and they're like parlaying with this Banshee Queen. You're like, oh, I'm having a resident president, and finally there's like a beast comes out, like, oh, yeah. So you're like the two grappling hooks come out. You ride this thing, whatever, and this crazy, ridiculous chase, and this nonsense, and you finally manage to crash land this wyvern. It's moving. It's got like 120-foot speed, and it's dashing and hitting. It's just like, and you crash land the thing, and you take it down, and there's this moment where you want to kill it, and you just grab for a rock. You're like, you don't even bother with weapons. You go for a rock and just club it. You're like full, like you've gone Arnold Schwarzenegger. You're in like Predator. You've just gone to this rock, and it sticks. Like this moment sticks with me, right? This choice, you as a player, you followed the story, right? You threw out. You're like, you know what? Clearly, the thing to do is like pull out the great sword and go for the max damage. Sure, you're like, I try and find a rock, a wet rock, and just start clubbing the thing with a wet rock. And you've thrown out all the rules, you've thrown out the mechanics, and you're following the fiction. So
yeah.
As a DM, how do you get your players to do that, right? How do you create those moments where they throw out what's right? Like numerically, like mechanically, grabbing the wet rock and trying to club the thing with the wet rock is absolutely not what you're supposed to do. You just like Gorgon Rex is just grabbing the rock and just clubbing the brains out of this thing. So
that's what I like about 5th edition.
How do we do that?
You don't need to play optimally in 5e. Like 3rd edition, I get that. Like if I'd had a player that like, okay, well listen, real quick, that's like a D4 at best, like that kind of thing. But 5th edition is very, I find it facilitates a fiction first style of game because it's like, I didn't use my axe like I could have. Like that's okay. Like I feel like I have a freedom to follow the fiction as a player. That comes from being a DM for years and going like, oh, it'd be really cool if a player did this. And then not seeing it for many different reasons, not negative, just not seeing it but keeping it in the back of my mind of like, oh, well, I've never seen a player do this, act this way or play this way. And so I like to like, I'll drink the potion, I'll push the button, I'll be first through the door. I'm here to play this game as best I can. And man, if I knew how to get others to do the same, would be writing a different book.
Yeah. Can you write that book, please? And I will be backer number one.
Adventurer's mindset.
Well, no, just like how can you create the environment where players like you can encourage your players to stop thinking mechanically and follow the fiction, right?
Yeah. I mean, like in that situation, I think you did a great job as a DM for that, because thinking back on it, you were very much like, all right, this is the kind of game I'm looking to run. We're here to, explore this mountain, see what's here. You present it as like a densely packed sort of sandbox thing where it's like there's a lot of different ways we could have solved that. There's a lot of different ways it could have gone.
There was no right or good way to solve it.
Yeah, it's like this is the encounter. How you're going to approach it, and so I felt the freedom to explore and do more and to experiment and like also. Like there's a part of it that because it was streamed, I'm like performativeness is at the forefront, but I think I'd probably done the same thing at a private table because it's cool to like grapple a wyvern and ride it and try to drown it and bash its head in.
Beat it with a
cool.
rock. Well, So well, that's
yeah,
the question. Oh, sorry, you can say Prue.
Well, I was going to say, I think there's a couple of ways that you can facilitate this, because I think what happens is you play a game for so long and you look at that character sheet and that becomes your character. You are only those things, not everything else in the world that you can do, and you're just really good at these things, right? Because that's what the character sheet is. It just tells you what you're really good at.
Yeah.
And so I think that a couple ways you can do this. Play a different game system. I know, my God, what? But just find something simple. Play a different game system so you can just get yourself out of that D&D mindset for just a bit, right? And that way when you come back to it, you'll be like, well, wait, I could do that other thing in that other system. Why can't I do that here? And you realize, wait, I can do that here. There's no rule against it. There's just not a rule supporting it. Yeah. And so I think that's one way. Another way is, and Jim has talked about this many times, like just take your character sheets away from the players.
Wow.
Like, just pick them up,
put
them behind the screen. You know your character's name, you know what they are. What do you want to do? And just let them think about it instead of looking at their character sheet, finding the most optimal thing to interact with, the situation at hand. So, not a long time, but just be like, hey, we're going to try something tonight. Just try to think outside the box, blah, blah, blah. If it's too much for anybody, we'll quit. But hey, it can be a fun team building exercise.
Well, that's interesting. I play D&D with kids a lot, right? Because I have a 9-year-old who plays Anvil. My 4-year-old tries to play a little bit. And I play with my niece and nephew, and they are really good at following the fiction, right? They are, but the interesting the older they get, the more they start following the mechanics, right? So my niece who's she's 12 is much more sort of like fixated on her spell list and trying to whatever, versus my son who just turned 9 will follow the fiction and isn't so wrapped up in like what his skill set is, and will often forget to use the optimal thing, whatever, and just go for the story. And it's so I could either turn all the players into children or take away their character sheets. And
well, that's one of the things I see with a lot of new players, and I think as we get older, as you start becoming more socially aware, you start becoming aware of what happens when you embarrass yourself in front of people. I think especially for new players, there is this concern that if I don't play it right, I'm gonna
do it wrong.
I'm gonna be ruining the game for people or something like that. And it's really the only way to play a role play game wrong is to not make choices and to not it doesn't, because so much of the interesting story stuff comes out of failing anyways. If everything goes right for you all the time, it's kind of boring. So I would rather somebody makes a strong, interesting choice that's bad than just plays optimally the entire time and
bold
nothing ever goes
choices
wrong.
are always the memorable ones.
Yeah.
But that's always been the irony, or I don't know if that's the right word, but in RPGs, what do you get experience for? Doing things, completing things. In life, what do you get experience from? Effing up.
Yeah.
Making mistakes.
Right.
You make a mistake, and then your brain goes, okay, so we're never going to do that again. And then you and then you get back on the path, right? So I would like to see a role-playing game that's how you get experience. You go do stupid, crazy things that you might go, this, but it will entice you to just, whatever it is, kitchen sink ideas. What do we think, guys? Make a catapult to fling me up on the building?
What's the? There's a mechanic. There's a game system that has a mechanic that when you fail, you get XP.
Yeah. The name's, it might be Burning Wheel that does that.
Yeah.
I've wanted to play Burning Wheel. I've heard good things about Burning Wheel. When I've described what I look for in games, I've never played Burning Wheel though. Somebody's saying Fate does that.
Fate, I was gonna say Fate.
They're saying Blades in the Dark kind of works like that.
More or less, yeah. Blades in the Dark has
there's a system.
Cypher system. You get XP when the DM intrudes, right? Which is the
I love the DM intrusion in Cypher system. It's one of my favorite mechanics.
Yeah.
With our home group, one of the things that was nice, because they were basically all first-time players when we started our 5e campaign, and I think one of the things that really freed things up, we did just a mini, a short campaign in a system called North Sea Epilogues, and the way that system works is your GM. There's already the idea that a DM really shouldn't be playing against the players anyways.
Yeah.
But with North Sea, really all that you're doing is kind of setting the stage And so you set up like what the challenges are and like what they're running into, but you never like your enemies never make attacks against them. You never like give them like a challenge that they have to like respond to. There's no like saving throw situation. It's basically just, this is the situation. What are you trying to accomplish? And you look at you take like your background. You look at like the skills that you have, and you basically just describe like, this is what I'm gonna do in this situation. And it can be combat. It can be trying to set up like a siege weapon. It can be like any number of things. And no matter what you're doing, what you do is they tell you what you're trying to do, and you decide what the difficulty is. You have them roll the d20 for it, and all you do is you tell them how far above or below they are of like that difficulty, and they describe how it happens. And
The player gets to describe how it happens.
and you take like strain, and it can be physical or mental, like when you fail things. And if you run out of it, like you don't die unless you decide like that's what makes sense to happen here. And it can be a thing where it's just like
You can choose that your character should have died.
You can choose if it's time for you to die, or it can be like you're just removed from the scene, and it can be that like maybe you're afraid and you run away, maybe you collapse, maybe you have a breakdown, and it's just, and then you kind of adjust your character sheet. Yeah, you adjust your character sheet because there's mental stats, physical stats, whatever.
Right.
You adjust your character sheet to reflect like kind of what you went through in the last couple of sessions, and it's just it's entirely built around collaborative storytelling, and then kind of adjusting the sheets to reflect the role playing as opposed to
That was that Viking-esque thing. You
It's
played
a
with-
Viking game,
when
yeah.
Eli.
I played it.
it
Yeah, I
with-
played a
yeah.
test session with Eli and
Yeah.
Letitia and Nina, and that was
Fun.
a lot of fun. It's a cool system, and it I feel like it takes some of like the pressure of like, oh, I have to play this like mechanically correctly. Off of new players.
Yeah, I think like when I think of that game, and I like, that was a fun ass game. Like that's some of the best 5e I've played, just hands down, because of how high octane that session was. Like, number one, I made a champion so that I did not have to worry about shit on my character sheet.
You literally said you tried to make yourself the simplest character possible.
Yep, I wanted the simplest character possible. I didn't want to have to worry about short rest, long rest, per use. I always forget them.
Oh.
I'm very much in the moment when I play, so needing to look at my character sheet, I don't like needing to do that. So that's like a personal play preference, but like I really do think a lot of my approach to playing that I think is really fun comes from like being a DM. Like I've had so many favorite NPCs just get plastered and die. Like so many like treasures and like special little snowflakes to me just destroyed. That no one character that when I'm a
Crew's
player
hiding.
is so important to me, right? Yeah, who knows what he did. No one character when I play is so important to me that I won't play them recklessly.
Yeah.
Especially, I like that. Like fifth edition was the edition that made me go like to like love martial kind of characters and action oriented characters as opposed to the more like casters, wizards, and the like. And so I just like embrace the fact that there's always another character. I'll have another idea. If this fighter goes out because this dumbass can't grapple a wyvern out of the air and ride it, he plummets, and that's the end of him. That's cool too. That's an interesting story too, to me. Like that someone was going for broke, and that must have been really dangerous. Like,
How'd he go out? Well, this is a story. You better sit down and give me an ale.
Old Morgan.
Yeah. Oh,
Tumbled down the mountain. Cautionary tale: don't go outside, dwarves.
don't ever leave the mountain.
Right. Yeah.
So I want to talk about DM prep. This is a thing I'm always interested in because I feel like I've never figured it out, right? Because there's never enough time. You never, I don't know. You're always, the session's always coming, and there's never enough time to do everything you want to do. What do you guys do? Like, what's your most high value? What's your DM prep like, and what are your most high value activities? Like, what do you prioritize? I don't know. What do you do?
Well, I usually, and this has just come over years of being an avid player and an awful DM, right? I was that story of, everybody has that DM in their group that like runs like 4 or 5 sessions and it peters out, and then you go back to the other DM.
Yeah.
Like that was in our group, right? I could handle about 5 or 6 sessions before the wheels came off until we started doing WebDM. And then, I got Jim in a room. It was like, how do you do it?
What do you do?
And that was, It was this. I've been playing the long game, and so the sessions and campaigns that I've run now, I learned a lot. Also, sorry, I hate to say this, but I also found my jam, and my jam was Spelljammer. And once I found that,
dude, end the show. We're out.
Nope,
Cut his mic.
nope,
Cut his mic.
Nope. Since I am more of I've always loved science fantasy. Like, that's always been a thing for me. Star Wars isn't science fiction, it's science fantasy.
Full on.
I'm sorry to tell you this, but that's all what it is. And so once I discovered that, I was like, oh crap, I know how to run this.
Yeah.
And we did a long-term home game, and then I did a game on WebDM, and I've run a few campaigns since then. And it's ever evolving. I started as the, campaign Bible. Hell, they're right here. Here's all my Spelljammer notes. There's 2 binders and a couple of handwritten ones, right? No reason why they're just right there at hand at all. Anyway, but what I learned and discovered, and this is from Jim and just the shows we've done and just thinking about it, I stick to a few things. I don't care about anything outside of 3 days travel from the players.
Yep.
That's who cares. Anything other than that, it should be a sentence at most. Just something to like, and this is where the finest silk and blah 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 comes from. And you'd be like, well, we can go get some silk if we want to. You've laid that nugget if you want. But when it comes to the prep for the session, though, I stick to the rule of 3. I don't do anything more than 3 things. Like, okay, we're going to a market today. Well, I'm only going to worry about 3 vendors in that market, or 3 people that they can interact with. One is going to come up to them. They've already said they're looking for a sword, so I'm going to make the blacksmith, and then I'll have a wild card that, maybe they go to, maybe they don't. And I just try to keep it that. And when it comes to that, whatever thing I have prepared, meaning like, okay, there's a bad guy who wants to do a thing, it will cross paths with them. If they pick up on it, great. If not, whatever. Even that only has 3 parts to it. So I just try to limit myself, because you can't account for what the players are going to want to do.
Period.
Or which direction they're going to go. All you can do is throw out hooks, right? You can lay the groundwork for them and throw out a few hooks here and there. If you have good players at your table, they'll say, oh, there's a hook. I'm going to just pick this up. And they'll go with it. And that gives you at least direction. And then you start preparing and laying the groundwork. But when it comes to like factions, NPCs like that, just first off, think of and try to use characters that you have played in the past. It will shine through. Give them a different name, but give them the same attitude, the same voice, the same everything. And it will shine through. I've been doing this for my home science fiction game, and holy crap, every NPC that I have that was a former character, they have had multiple interactions with. And all the other NPCs, they just go to once.
I steal people I've LARPed with, because they're just it's literally like hundreds of NPCs that are just lined up. You're like, exactly, what they look like, they talk like, you got the whole thing's already done.
So that, to me, that for NPCs, that's how I finally go, oh, okay, now I get it. So I always, I got about 8 to 10 characters that I've played that I still kind of remember their whole shtick. That at least I have that, and like I said, file the serial numbers off, make them a bartender instead of a blacksmith. It doesn't matter for the next campaign, but those are a few simple things for me. Also, I did a campaign based entirely off 3d6 tables, and that was insane. I highly recommend it.
Whoa.
All the information you just put into a 3d6 table. You have that many entries, and then just fill out those entries, and you just roll on it before each. And that was Breath of the Fall, and that every adventure, if you want, if you care, it's over on WebDM Plays. But every adventure, I rolled on a 3d6 table like 5 or 6 times, and that's how I came up. And then it was just like story dice, you connect what you get and make a little story out of it. But guess what? It always came together, and they had fun, and it was a fun campaign. But that freed me.
So what about,
that was all Jim Davis.
So what about you, Jim? Aside from Spelljammer, do you have any advice on prepping for DM?
That's everything Pruitt said. It's being able to sort of start small and build out, and not get too far ahead of yourself. Like, save your creative energy for what's going to happen at the session. I like to create like a palette for myself. Like, I realized this a while back. Like, I don't have a set system or anything that I always use for every session or even every campaign, but the commonality is that when I'm prepping for a session, I want everything that I don't want to have to come up with off the top of my head to have at hand, names and potential encounters and things like that. If there's any custom stats, that'll come out. But if I'm running a long-term campaign, my prep is broken into two parts. Usually, like right after a session, I prep for the next one.
Yeah, it's the best time.
That's when it's freshest.
You have the
it's
momentum
freshest.
right out of it. Yep.
I'm pumped, oh yeah, and it's all fresh in your mind. And so I take my most detailed notes about a session like right afterwards, and do a lot of thinking of like, okay, how could the world react to these events, or like, what's the implication or consequences for whatever happened, or if the parties let me know a direction they'd like to head, I start jotting down initial notes for what might be there, what they could do, and then like immediately before the session, a week or so, all that's percolated and just sitting in the back of my mind and thinking about it when I fall asleep and things like that. I prep the tedious stuff right before session. Like, okay, I have to have am I going to have something with mechanical precision, or is there like a procedure for something I need to brush up on? If I'm running a chase, I'm going to reread the chase rules, because it's like right before I'm using them. I want as little time in between that prep.
5 minutes before you got to go. Yeah.
Refresh my memory. Write a cheat sheet out. Review my notes from right after the last session, and then at some point, something's going to happen that I'm not prepared for, and this is just where experience and being comfortable in running a game that you created really comes into play, and why I think keeping a small handful, one or two, campaign settings and the that you're really comfortable running, that the lore, the geography, who's who and what's what, and published or one you created, it doesn't really matter. Whichever one fires you up is what's important.
Yeah.
And for the two settings that I run games in, so much of what I need for prep has just been built up over the years, and you'll get there. You'll learn your setting as you play it, and if you start small and build out, you're never gonna prep something you don't need, or you'll rarely prep something that you don't need.
Well, even if you do prep something you don't need, there's a chance at some point you file it away, and it'll circle back at some point.
Yeah. Certainly.
Hopefully.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
you said, what were you saying?
We have a question spinning off of this that I think would be interesting.
Hit it.
How do you factor terrain into your prep? Are you the kind of person that builds out the encounter? Do you plan the session around the encounter, or do you build when it comes up and throw something together real fast?
For the most part, I build up at the table improv. If the party is in a particular geographic region, I might just have a list of terrain features that gives me both descriptive things to use as as you travel the countryside, this is what you see, and then also a list of when it's time to roll initiative, I can go, all right, here's the broken ground, here's a strand of trees, this is the high ground, stream over here, because I've already got a list of what might be there easily at hand, and I just sort of pick 3 or 4 just to create something interesting, just to anything to avoid the flat, featureless plane that that can sometimes come out of especially theater of the mind if you're not really fiction first. And but then there are those times when I'm no, they're gonna get ambushed right here because they chose to go this way, and there's bandits that are gonna ambush them. This is what it's like, and usually I'll have a diagram, and if I have availability of setting up terrain, I will, because I love playing with miniatures and terrain and things, and I'm tactile, I want to be able to see it, to feel it. So, yeah.
Do you guys think?
Yeah,
you go, Prue.
I was just gonna say I've only used terrain in one game. It was my home sci-fi game, but it was because they were going to a set location that was this area. So I did a big stupid Cthulhu temple, and
that's the only kind of Cthulhu temple.
I'll share it with you on the Discord. I was looking for it, and I finally found it.
Yeah, but like I was the kind of guy that was like, all right, that stack of books and the clear box that your dice came in and this toilet paper roll and like whatever was at hand, this Lego thing I built, and like that was why when the more real you can make it, the more it's like, okay, well, I painted my minis, or I got the 3D terrain, I've got the battle mat and everything. Like it's a full experience. I love that. Like,
Well, even if
it's very much
even if it's just
part
a
of the
roll
game.
of toilet paper, whatever, like it just having something like, for me at least, quantifying the battlefield tends to make combat more exciting and engaging, even if it's just a paper towel roll and a box of Oreos and whatever. Like it doesn't matter what the things are. It just
something to look at. Is this your temple we're looking at?
Wow, this is a sizable.
Yeah, it was a Cthulhu temple. So I figured, if it's at the heart of the moon, just think 2001, but it's not like a thing. It's Cthulhu. That's what they found down there. They didn't find a monolith. They found the old one. And
whoa.
so this is them coming back down after many years. Nobody's been down there, and it was a lot of fun. They were freaked out. It worked.
They were appropriately unsettled.
I'm getting it set up to show on the stream right now.
Yeah, and they were completely blown away. Like all the lights. Anyway. So,
and they just turned the ship around and flew away. They're like, nope.
Oh, this is
nope. They fought a 3-headed demon and barely survived.
This is
it was seriously this close to a TPK. I was terrified, but like everybody was in single digit hit points and one person was down. So yeah.
But that's what you like. That's the fight you're dreaming of, right? Where everybody's sort of holding their breath and it's right on the edge and you're bending them right to the point of breaking, and it's that they're telling that story for years, right? That was like the session.
This is a massive build.
Yeah.
I like that you've got the Malther terrain tray in there too. Like for a Cthulhu, for the Cthulhu temple, that seems appropriate.
A boulder on top of the fountain. Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. That was when you look at that center room and you see that the double-headed like snake thing that they defeated. So imagine looking through a portal and you see Earth. That's what the orb was. Is as they look through the portal, it's Earth. In this setting, I'm using the Stars Are Fire from Monte Cook Games. The whole deal is the Earth has been shut off for 10 years. 10 years ago, a force field came up and just shut nothing, no communication. Any ship that goes in does not come out.
Wow.
So my explanation for that is somebody found this temple and triggered the apocalypse, which is Cthulhu being born out of the earth, a la like, Tiamat or whatever. And I put it in, right underneath Old Faithful. So that was the whole Cthulhu's being born right there. And they literally, it was the first time anyone had seen past the thing, and they got to see the planet like from orbit. And that was kind of the build. They went through a little madhouse, and it was all stuff that was designed to like trigger insanity and whatever. And they were just like, none of them had ever played with terrain like that before. No, one player did.
But also in such a high stakes situation, and everything like. It sounds like everything was ratcheted up to 11. Like that was the session that they'll never forget.
How did you reveal it? Was it like covered up on the table and then you took it off, or was it just there when they walked in? Like how did you reveal this? It's a big build.
Cutting a lot of pieces of paper so that they weren't exactly to specifications, but I could at least like take them off piece at a time, and it blocked some of the light, and so. It was rough, but, we were constantly, like, taking pieces out and another piece slips. Like, don't look! Don't see!
I've thrown everything from baby blankets to construction paper, whatever, to, like, cover the thing. Like, just, yeah. We should make nice cloth covers at some point. Like,
that'd be good. Yeah, I mean, we've got the terrain trays for flying things out. That would actually be
But sometimes you can't fly stuff in and out, and you just need to cover bits and, like, segments, and I don't know. Mm-hmm. Using old socks is not. Do you have an idea?
I've had an idea for this for a while. I don't know if we should just say it like this or just tell you behind the scenes, and we could work out profit sharing. But just imagine like a metal. So each arm on a square is telescopic, and then it has fabric that is stretchy in some way. so that you can telescope out certain directions. And then you also have a circular one that can just expand or retract. And you just find and make those as cheaply as possible and sell them in packs. And that's how you can just cover up certain sections, and it's not too heavy.
You can even retract it as they see it or whatever.
A cool way to show fog of war would be good too.
Yeah.
Which the circular one could maybe do. Just like you can't see what's going on outside of this. It's one of the cool things about doing like a virtual tabletop is it'll give you like ways to set people's sight distance and everything.
I did it analog on Vorpal board with a dado and a spotlight. I could just control the spotlight, and they could physically only see what was in the spotlight.
That's cool.
That's
cool.
The camera was crushing the blacks enough that like they couldn't see anything.
It literally dropped off anything it didn't have light on it, and I could move it around.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. There's something about like playing with physical terrain, even virtual, that I found was like just more satisfying than a tile or like an image or something, because it's like there's a physicality to it. Even on a screen, you can sort of like,
and you're playing with toys. It's just more fun.
You're playing with toys. Come on, that's what it is. They
So,
said we had to grow up. And I was
right?
like, no.
I want to take some questions from the viewers, but one last one quick is for Jim. You said earlier that you were getting in shape for writing. What do you do? What's your writing process?
I hired writing coaches as part of it, just as somebody.
People hire physical trainers. There's no reason not to try to hire.
I've thrived with just somebody to go to report to, essentially, and so this was one of those things where I'd done writing before, not game design writing, but for my master's degree, and knew that like is comparable length to the sort of book they were writing, and I'd just be miserable. Like it'd be done, but it'd take too long, and I'd be hell to live with. And so I found someone, at 2C, their head designer at the time, Ryan Service. I was like, let's just get together every week, and we'll create assignments and turn it in. I'll write something and sort of turn it in. And
keep you accountable.
That was how, keep me accountable, and to like practice, because like writing is I think because like writing produces art, it sort of has this feeling of like it should feel something, you don't want it to be expressive and whatever, but I've found for me that writing is a craft. You just got to sit down and do it. There's some days that I can't write. It's like, I'll give myself a headache, and 100 words later, I'm miserable, and other days I just can't stop. But the more that I just sort of practice it, specifically like writing for game design, the easier it got. And then that was how Weird Wastelands evolved, because this whole project started as something very different. And we were talking earlier about like, you want feedback from your audience about what you're making, but you also like want to make it for yourself. And like that project sort of started as something that I realized, like, I don't really want to make this, like at least not in this form. And so we revisited it, and hence Weird Wastelands.
Yeah, you don't want to work hard on a thing you don't want to make.
Yeah. So I found myself avoiding certain parts of it. And this is when it was just sort of me working on it. Everybody else had yet to kind of like pile in and get in. And I was just like, when I think about writing this whole thing, I just recoil a bit.
That's not the right. Yeah.
That's a big red flag. And so I was like, well, what parts of it can we salvage, and what do I want to write, and what does WebDM want to write, and can we like make all that work? And like I said, here we are.
And Pruitt, do you have a writing regimen? Do you have a system?
Just trying to tread water and not drown. I'm trying to get back into shape. I used to write a lot more than back in the day, we'll just say. So, like I said,
what were you able to do? Why were you able to write so much then?
Well, I don't even know, man. Do you have a therapy couch?
Yeah.
How much time what do you charge per hour?
Yeah.
No. I don't know. It's just, I mean, I enjoy writing for campaigns, and so that's what I've been trying to do, is use that as a way to, kind of sideswipe myself into actually getting stuff done. But I mean, I'm very ADHD, so it helps to have somebody with me to keep me on track. And then, I do a hell of a lot better. But just figuring this out. We just had to crunch out a bunch of monsters for a side project while we're doing our own Kickstarter.
Who's got time for a side project in the middle of a Kickstarter? What's wrong with you guys?
I don't know. We cranked out like 18 or 19 monsters for them. So, that was fun. Like that was good to, all right, this is what everybody has to do. We have to have it done by this time. And I was only 30 minutes late. So that's
not 30 days.
Not terrible in the
30 minutes.
Not terrible in the grand scheme of things, but I'm still I'm looking at that going you could have got that done quicker. You know that.
30 minutes late on a writing deadline is early. I think.
Yeah. So,
same day we turned it into.
Yeah. I mean, it was 1:30 in the afternoon. Yeah. So but that was good. Because it was when I needed to, I sat down and I made myself write and get the and crank it out, which I can't wait to see what those look like in their final form.
Yeah,
it's gonna be fun.
We had some doozies in there.
This is not for Weird Wastelands. This is the 19 monster.
The Grim Hollow monster book that just their Kickstarter ended last month.
We were in the $900,000 stretch goal.
Yeah, that's an honor. So they're like, go nuts.
They're running out of stretch goals. They're like, I don't know. What else do we know?
We had a lot of. It was fun because we had a lot of freedom to just create whatever. Read their lore and then just go nuts. It was really good, really cool.
Yeah, it's nice to do something that's not just come in as a mercenary and just do a fun thing and get
there's a freedom when I don't have when it's like the stakes are lower and so you can be a bit more freewheeling and whereas everything you make is my precious baby. Perfect in every way.
Well, that's such an important killing your darlings. Doing work for somebody else's thing is so much easier to just be merciless. And it's a nice feeling. If you can sort of port that into the things you're doing for yourself, it's there's something to it.
That's why you bring in an outside voice, someone who can tell you this sucks. You gotta cut it.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the here we have the advantage of having we have a pretty big team, so you can always have some fresh eyes on a thing and say, hey, people are really good at giving good isn't the right word, useful feedback. Say, hey, this is oh yeah, this is awesome, but it doesn't feel dangerous, or it doesn't feel this, or oh yeah, no, that thing it is just as cool as you think it is, or.
And that's tough to give that feedback in a creative setting, because you don't want to take somebody's creation and just crap all over it.
Yeah,
there is legitimate critique, and so I like it, but it is a different kind of thing, and very unlike just writing for your game prep. For the next week's session.
Well, it's the difference for doing artistic work as a job versus doing artistic work for your home game or whatever. It's a completely different. But it's hard. No matter how it is, it's always hard when somebody says that thing you think is the sparkling snowflake is they take a flamethrower to it. And you're like,
mm-hmm.
I wanted to.
Not a snowflake of water. It's made of pee.
It's the urine flake.
Right.
I don't know.
Don't eat snowflakes, kids. That's the lesson.
Do we have any questions, Chris?
We do. First one's very important. How excited would you be for a modular ship system?
Age of Sail or spaceships?
If we made a modular, like a ship. Well, maybe Spelljammer style
Jesus,
stuff.
Come on.
But just the idea of if we made a system for modular ships creation.
I think that would be awesome, but I have to know, is it just the y-axis that bothers you? The fact that the ship can go up?
No, it's the name.
He just doesn't like spell. He hates the name of Spelljammers.
It's the worst. Because conceptually, I like the concept of flying through the Faustian and going to visit the worlds and space pirates and all that stuff. But the name just absolutely murders me. And then there's some nonsense that
if it helps, jamming is a nautical term.
Yeah, it is.
Windjamming.
It's an adaptation of Windjammers.
But it just doesn't sound cool. I don't care what the etymology is. It just doesn't sound cool.
Yeah. I mean, I call them spell engines in my world. Like you just
Better.
invest spells to
Yep.
make a thing go. But you could also,
And then you can
if
make 'em
you buy the very expensive models, you can put magic items in it and let them get burned out using it up as fuel.
Yeah.
So non-spellcasters could also fly.
So I think the way to make this a more useful question is to then ask something somebody asked before. What biomes have we not made that you would be excited to see us make?
Oh, that's a good. Yeah. What terrain? Is there terrain that you've been stumped for? You're like, man, all the time I need to build a giant ham jammer and I don't have anything to build it. Or what do I need? Like,
we know what our audience asks us for all the time, but like. Without knowing any of the history, any of the inside jokes, any of the running gags going on here, like when you think of like terrain that we haven't made yet, like a gap that needs to be filled, what comes to mind?
Yeah. Could you do like the back of a giant manta ray with like a city on it?
yeah.
Just a world turtle.
No.
My favorite non RPG hobby source for terrain is the aquarium aisle of Pet Store.
The aquarium store.
Yeah,
Always,
you can get so many good things from like
so many fun things. Yeah, and so like there's
Alien
things like
plants.
a giant skull,
Yeah.
alien places. Places like Michael's or Hobby Lobby around Halloween also have similar things like that, right? And you could pick up a lot of good stuff. So like we like terrain. I don't know. Like the more I think about it, a lot of this was like in Wilderlands, with like the sort of like the floating earth motes and some of like the weird plants and things that were there. Biomes. I don't. You guys.
We took
you
an
guys have
aquarium and put it on acid.
For example,
yeah.
So for example, we haven't done desert. We haven't done
Right.
like Arctic. We haven't done
That was my
underwater.
Yeah, desert and underwater. Like I have a real soft spot for an underwater. Like everybody plays Tritons and Merfolk and things like that kind of game, and that would be tough to find. I mean, outside of an aquarium aisle, it'd be tough to find stuff to put in the thing.
Y'all have done swamps, yes?
Yes.
In Wildlands, we finally did them. Yeah, they look
They
good.
look
I'm excited for them.
Yeah,
I mean,
like some kind of desert. I think would be really fun.
Back to
But
sand.
I would say some kind of man, if you could make some
man?
kind of like turnstile thing for ships, so that you could actually just have the two setups with the people on it, but they're like if they're like racing or chasing each other, you can alter where they are. I mean, I guess you could just do that, but
I
That'd be
okay, I
interesting.
have one. Meatland. Everything's made of organic
Meat.
material. Meat, gristle, bone, sinew. Like you could use it to build the inside of giant monsters and go adventure there, or it could be like, what weird, disturbing hell have you found?
The burrows painted red.
Yeah. Or it's
So
just,
so you watch the finale of Critical Role then?
Yeah.
no, I might have to now.
I had a 6 foot tall statue of a meat lady in a storage locker for
What is a
over
meat
a
lady?
year.
Yeah, I
Really
gotta know
long.
more.
We've all been there. I had a friend who made a movie about a sculptor who sculpted in meat and had had art department make this like huge. It must have weighed 100 pounds, like I don't know, almost 7 foot tall like lady made of meat, and it was just so cool. He was gonna. He didn't know what to do with it because it was this huge, heavy, like meat lady, and I'm like, "Well, you can't throw it out." He's like, "Well, you don't want it." I'm like, "Yeah." I didn't know what to do with it, so I had to put it in a storage locker. And it was like, I had this meat lady there forever. Then people, everything, you'd open the storage locker, and there's just like meat lady, and it was like,
We could reach a whole new audience selling meat lands to schools for their science classes for biology.
I'm just saying, if you've read Preacher, you could do a more accurate version of Preacher when you get to that side story. And I'm not gonna say what it is. Who knows?
I have not, but
I'm gonna throw
many
in.
people said I should.
I'm gonna throw in something here because you mentioned sci-fi earlier.
Yeah.
We are working on some sci-fi.
Oh yeah.
What would be the most
that's
interesting
not
sci-fi stuff that you would want to see personally when you're running sci-fi games? What sci-fi terrain would be the most interesting to you?
Inside a caldera of a volcano. I do a lot of that for like pirate bases and stuff like that. Actual like asteroids with like craters that or at least like the surface of something that has craters, because that's just a different way of
Crater
having
pocked,
just, like, cover. Yeah, like pocked areas, so that you have like
difficult terrain and like cover.
Well, and that's also something that's really conducive to
That'd be really good
terrain, right? Because there's so much depth to it.
That'd be really good for
Yeah.
BattleTech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blocking line of sight.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, like that.
I see like freestanding catwalks and gantries and things like that. I could see being really cool. Lots of elevation in sci-fi. Like I don't know if you all played Necromunda. I did back in the first time it came out. And the cardboard terrain there was my favorite part because it's like dingy and dirty and derelict, but also like lots of levels and connections and bridges and walkways. Like I could see something like that working for a lot of different like sci-fi cities or like installations kind of thing, like corridors, something I can play aliens in, something I can like, this is a derelict ship that's been infested, like good luck, go find the transponder, good luck. Or like alien worlds of like pools of sulfur and like big smokestack kind of venting out poisonous gases into the atmosphere, or strange plants or things like that. That'd be really fun.
I love hostile environments.
Yeah, hostile environments.
Is fun.
Suspended catwalks is a good idea. I hadn't thought about that. You see that a lot, especially because so many sci-fi games like involve ranged combat with like blasters and stuff.
That elevation.
Always in a
is
refinery or a factory up, like however high in the air.
Always, right?
Yeah.
Vats of weird sludge and stuff, like because
just weird.
Doesn't matter
stuff
what it
hanging
is. Who
down.
cares?
yeah.
You could sell like little strips of plastic sheet to drape over everything.
Yeah, totally. It's always the sheet. What else?
Yeah, because currently sci-fi is I saw that survey and I was like, yeah, some cool sci-fi terrain would be really really fun, because if I had to run a game like that, I don't think I have anything. It'd be back to Coke cans and towel rolls.
We've seen some people use some of our exterior stuff. We've seen people use Hellscape for sci-fi stuff really well. 'Cause
Yeah.
you can do like some Mustafar style stuff with Hellscape.
Yeah.
So some of our
It's
exterior
high
stuff.
ground.
Some of our exterior stuff, and I think a lot of the plants and wildlands will be good for it too. But yeah,
drift stones.
it'd be nice to do some stuff that is like very explicitly
The
science fiction.
craters. The craters are a fun.
I hadn't thought of
across
that,
the
and that's like a
boards.
really yeah.
You do some cool stuff with like big craters and ridges and things.
Just
yeah.
just exciting across the boards. And you could use it. You could use it for fantasy. You could use it for World War II. You could use it. I don't know. These craters are just like could be blast craters. Could be asteroid craters. Could be any. Like they're just. It could have been where the meteor swarm hit. It could have been. I don't know. There's just like craters are they're violent and exciting.
Oh yeah. Okay, two or three occurred to me now. What about like cloud cities, like both fantasy or sci-fi, of like,
Well, what makes a cloud city, right? It's just a city that the ground is cloud instead of ground.
Yeah,
right?
well, if it's fantasy, it's like this is like a castle built in clouds or something
Yeah.
like that. But like, sci-fi would probably be more like a tray or something you put over it or underneath it.
A lot of railed walkways.
Yeah, a lot of real
Yeah.
walkways.
I was gonna say that feeds back into just the catwalks and walkways kind of thing. It's just if you want it to be more city or like, more industrial ship kind of thing.
Well, it's like elemental or planar type terrains.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's probably some neat stuff like you could do with like water, air, or even like Shadowfell type stuff. Like, yeah, I don't know. Those are the kind of environments that I feel like don't get developed enough. And so like, well, where else are you going to set your high level D&D?
Well, the challenge is they don't come out as often. Like the number of times you're in a dungeon or in a forest versus the number of times you're on the elemental plane of fire.
Right. Yeah.
It's like that ratio is not so good for us.
Yeah. No, I can see that too. I mean, that's part of why we were like, Weird Wastelands is one of the things we wanted to make sure people knew is like it's not all or nothing. You can take a little bit of this if you've got your bucolic pastoral fields and your forests and your traditional fantasy. You can just like take a little bit out of here. You don't have to commit to the whole aesthetic if you don't want to.
Well, it seems like you could drop a wasteland. You could drop a thing in. It could be something happens and it suddenly springs up, or it could be that section that was that desert area or the whatever. There's something. There's always some. the something wastes is
The something, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, Forgotten Realms is like thick with those, for instance.
Yeah.
Greyhawk too, yeah. But yeah, you don't always go to the plains, so I could see that being.
Also, it's a great if you're like world building, you kind of if you don't want you can't build the whole thing out in one. So often you just be like, that's the wastes of terrible. Don't go there because I haven't written it area. But now we have a book to fill it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When is it going to ship? When do we get it?
The idea is to have the PDF ready by next March or so, and then first batch of shipping will be out hopefully end of August, September. That's sort of our estimated. But yeah.
Wait, what month is it right now? Oh,
I know.
So
That's what's up. I feel that.
I'm like, it's totally off. Yeah. So it's about a year. About
PDFs
14 months.
About 9 months, and then actual books, and about a little over a year, like 14 months.
Yeah.
Speaking of that Kickstarter, we've got 2 questions about the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
That I think would be good. One should be pretty fast. Is there a monster appendix or a separate book for the monsters at all, or is that going to be included in the same source book?
They'll be in their own section of the book, but yeah, there's a dedicated section to the custom monsters that we'll have.
Awesome.
As well as like a bunch of other stuff related to monsters.
And then the other question
is...
Wait,
what's the other stuff related to monsters?
Like a table for like, spell warped beasts, so that you don't have to be lame and just have like a regular cow. It can be like a post-apocalyptic cow, man.
What's a post-apocalyptic cow? He's got like spiky shoulder pads.
That's how you get Gorgons.
Hairs and kind of a mohawk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't give off milk. It gives
Stay
off
away from its
Coca-Cola.
farts.
Actually, I was going to say earlier, I want to get back to this. I'm glad we're talking about this. One of the jokes that we had as an elevator pitch was, what if Skyrim and Fallout had a baby and that baby was raised by D&D? It's like Weird Wasteland.
That's a good pitch.
That's
That's a much better elevator pitch than my ramble.
Then,
but yeah, there's stuff for monsters. The other stuff would just be like advice for what, how to run this kind or how to change it up, that kind of thing. Like similar to like the Ravnica section on monsters, where it's like, this is what these monsters mean in this context.
This is the next question is something we kind of touched on a bit earlier, but it's kind of a more specific phrasing of it. They're wondering if you'd be able to use this book to expand your adventures in Avernus. Like if you could apply this to moving through the Hells.
I should hope so.
Not.
Yeah, that's a pretty hellish wasteland there. Yeah.
You've got vehicles, right? You've got battle wagons. You've got all sorts of weird alien terrain, and
we have ideas for different kinds of fuel though.
Yeah. In many ways, like seeing Avernus and like having part of it, having the product like go in a different direction than what I would have wanted. Of like, oh, you're going to hell. Like you really got to survive out here. This is a challenge. Like you're gonna.
It was like fun hell. It's like an amusement park hell. This is
it's like
it's full of fun characters that are interesting thing, and you get a Mad Max vehicle.
You get an elephant.
Yeah. And so like, there's a lot there to enjoy from that experience. But I was also hoping for one that was like, no, this is like a challenge for higher level D&D parties.
Yeah.
And like, D&D has this level-based system in it that is one of its features. And I think, at least in terms of like what I experienced from feedback from DMs and comments and things, is like, because you play so much in the first 2 tiers, like that's where you get sort of stuck conceptually. And so as you move past that and the characters start getting benchmarks of power, like, no, I don't need to worry about eating and drinking anymore. I have my own, and ways to mitigate the side effects of that, which, as an aside, it might not be a good idea to drink a lot of or eat a lot of magic food in a weird wasteland. That might just be a bad idea. But that the players get these powers for their characters as benchmarks. Fireball lets you know, I can lay the smack down on a group of goblins now. They used to be a threat. They are no longer a threat. There's something else out there greater, that a magical wasteland, whether it's planar or created by an apocalypse or something like that, is a way to up the ante, to say, okay, regular wilderness isn't going to cut it anymore. You have mastered that.
Yeah.
That's no longer a challenge, but this is different. This is a challenge worthy of your level.
This is a heroic. This is a heroic environment to conquer, right? This is the sort of thing only heroes can do. Similar, going to hell should have been that thing. Like, it's not like, oh, you roll down there at first level and just sort of make your way through. It should be like you get incinerated for your first level. You need to be 15th level to try and battle your way through. It's completely inhospitable in every way.
Yeah, I think there's nothing to eat here. You're gonna have to figure that challenge. That's part of the challenge of adventuring there, is to be able to like survive.
I think the resource management aspects would fit really well, and especially if you're like moving through like Stygia or Kanya. Like if you're having to worry about like Oregon Trail style accidents where you've lost like some of your supplies now, and you're in a place like that, like
there is no town. There is
When you're in dysentery means a whole different thing.
Putting the dysentery in dis.
And like, to me, that's part of the challenge. It's not just can you survive the combat with these big nasties that are out here. It's like, can you get to them in fighting shape? Are you able to leave to get out in fighting shape? Like, it's all part of the story to me. It's all part of the adventure. And like, to focus in on one part, which I understand why, that's the exciting part, the high octane combat part. But like, I don't like leaving things off the table, because I want to know what happens after the. Can we make it out of here alive? Frodo and Sam are worried that when they finally get the ring into the fire, that they won't have enough food to get home. How are they going to get back home?
Well, there's some staggering statistic about climbing Mount Everest, where it's something like 90% of the deaths on Mount Everest happen on the way back down, because everybody's focused on just ascending the peak, getting there, and they're like, there's no plan for like, oh, now I have to I still have a day's travel back down, and I've used up everything to get here. How the hell am I going to get down? And they die.
Yeah, it's tragic, but it's part of that story. It is. I like that kind of game. Yeah,
I think I would wingsuit parachute.
There you go. There you go. Just tough out the cold.
Be done with it in like 20 minutes.
Can you imagine ziplining down from the top of Mount Everest?
Yes, from the roof of the world.
Yeah, that's what they need.
How far could you get? You could probably get to a different country pretty easily if you're just ziplining from Everest.
This popsicle arrives. You're just like, you're the meat lady. You're this 7-foot tall frozen meat lady when you arrive. There's nothing left. Oh man! So we have any other? Do we have any other questions we should?
We've got an interesting DM question that I think would be fun to address before we wrap up. Dragon Day's wondering, how do you handle a character summoning a creature, especially if you need the stats and capabilities that it has? Anybody who's played with like a Circle of Shepherds druid or something like that, and they just bust out something you never expected, how do you handle that? Do you find it interrupts the flow of the game at all, or how do you?
It can. Yeah.
It can. To me, if somebody has summoning, I let them know up front. If you're going to summon something, I want you to have the stats ready.
Oh yeah.
We'll mitigate how, if it's like DM rolls, blah blah blah. But you need to know that once you say I'm going to summon this, I want you to be able to go. What do I roll? D6. Okay, I rolled a 5. What do you get? 2 wolves.
You got them right here. Yep.
I try to make sure that if that is the case, but if not, that's what they have. They should have that ready.
Yeah. I feel that's there's part of that's on the player. Like if they chose to play a summoner, then there's a part about being a player where you're doing your best, with your experience level and whatnot to keep the game flowing smoothly. And so if you're going to play a summoner, I'm going to assume as a DM or have a talk about like, okay, well, you know how to read a monster stat block. I feel comfortable handing you the monster manual. I know you're not going to look up the monsters we're fighting at other times, like that's sort of a quick just aside to have with a player at the table. The other thing that I like to do is to ground the summons in the fiction of the world. So it's like, this isn't just an animal or a thing you're summoning. Like you're summoning a specific fairy spirit that manifests as this beast. It's the same one every time. How you treat it, what you do, like it's a relationship that you develop with them. And so here is its stats.
So if you pull it up and you just send it and it gets shredded by trolls every time, it's
every
gonna be
time. Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
dude, I am not.
Yeah, it's like you're then
Gonna take a PTO day today.
That's one of the
I'm not available. I'm at the beach. Sorry.
That's one of the things I
Right.
that's one of the things I love doing. Like my paladin, when I use find steed, like I'm not just like summoning like a horse. Like I'm summoning an elk that this is a defined character that I'm pulling from another plane. By the way,
What's
every
your
time I do
elk's
this.
name?
Private Flanagan. I named him after a Sean Connery character. It's
You're going to do this. I have this sacred bond with.
no, but here's the thing.
D&D, baby.
But here's the thing. No, it's genuinely become like an actual.
Don't react too well to summons.
It's genuinely become. No, it's real. No, it's for real. Like he talks like Tyler has to. It was so Tyler would have to do a Sean Connery impression. It's a whole thing. Yeah. But we actually, did treat it like an actual relationship that grows over time, and like so there's this whole like actual mutual respect thing, and that's so much more interesting.
Yeah.
It's the one thing that bothers me about like the new like kind of dragonkin ranger where like you get like a dragon like creature and it's like, oh, you just get like a dragon, but it's like a thing, and if it dies you just get another one. I'm like, why isn't it a thing that you make an impression on and like grows with you over time? That's so much more interesting to me.
Yes.
It becomes a part of your character and you get to know its stats, so in combat you know what it does and how it can behave and how it acts. Like and then as you role play, you role play out the sort of the relationship that develops. But the idea of just handing them a stat block and saying, yeah, this is the animal you summon, like let me know when you want to learn how to summon a different one, or you want something for a different purpose. But like from just a gameplay level, if you're going to take on as a player the challenge, the task rather of like, I'm going to be running multiple characters in a combat, then that comes with an assumption that you're going to do everything to like keep that running smoothly.
Yeah.
And like, if you know you're going to summon something, think about it ahead of time. I'm going to use conjure animal. What do I want to summon a CR1 creature. Can I just pick, or do you want to roll? Like, those are the kinds of things as a player you want to ask about ahead of time, and make sure it's like.
I think that's why they did those new summons in Tasha's where there's just single things. Man, when you get just a whole bunch of a pack of nonsense on the table, it's just like it bogs everything. Like it's just the
Circle
worst.
of Shepherd, man.
Summoning is the worst. Like just just stop.
Yeah,
like,
druids are Circle of Shepherd. I mean, druids were already pretty powerful summoners, but Circle of Shepherd certainly, ups the ante.
Yeah.
I also kind of think that that most monsters in D&D should be like, this is a medium humanoid. Here are its stats, and then you just describe it as whatever kind of humanoid it is, and then this is a small beast, and it has into like generic stat blocks that
just
you
have some simple blocks that you scan and
do we need this many CR8 or 0 or 1 or whatever beasts? Like, could just use 3 or 4 and and modulate it.
A land, an air, a sea, and call it a day.
Yeah,
that's fair.
We should wrap up because we're at we're at 9:10. Do you guys have any parting words for the intrepid doofers that are here, the Dwarven army that's you've got their ear?
Oh yeah. Go ahead, bro.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, you can check us out on Wednesdays. We have new videos on YouTube for WebDM. All of our archived games is on WebDM Plays. It's a separate YouTube channel. But we have a ton of games over there. Also, if you like what you hear, you can check out our Patreon to help support the show. But, if you haven't checked out the Kickstarter, please do. You might like it.
Yeah, you should definitely hop on. You got some. There's a PDF tier, right? Isn't there? Is an affordable? I don't know. I just went in.
There's some pretty affordable options to get the material in there.
Like you guys had. It was.
We wanted to span all of the options, because we just want people to play with it.
I backed pretty high because I'm particularly interested in. I love the way that you're writing the monsters. I really like. There's this kind of like nice like, and I think part of it was so that you could apply it to other game systems if you wanted to as well. There's like a very nice kind of general thing to it about these are the qualities that make up what this monster is, and then actual 5e stat blocks as well. But yeah, we wanted to give a sort of, like I said, full spectrum was really what we're after. So we wanted to have like, you could role play this thing, especially with the monster in the promo. It's
big ass match-eating manticore.
It's very cool. I wish we talked more about it because it's. But it's
I know.
good.
I know we're running. I know we're run over, but it can talk to you while it eats you. That's all I want. That's why I love them and ghouls. I love a monster that has language and intelligence. And is yet monstrous. So yeah.
Perfect of all worlds. Well, definitely check out the Kickstarter if you guys haven't. I threw the link up there. And all you need to remember for prepping your D&D apparently is Spelljammer and the Rule of Threes. So if nothing else, we walked away with something today.
The link to the Kickstarter is right there. You can find them. Searching WebDM is a pretty easy way to find them on pretty much any socials. And check out their Patreon. They're very cool guys. They do great work. They've been friends with us for a long time. Very long time. Doing cool stuff in the community.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to it. Seems like the world is, conventions are coming back, so hopefully we'll see you guys in person at some point.
Yeah, we're looking at some for the fall.
Yeah, definitely.
Should be pretty awesome. Cool.
Yes.
Well, we have tomorrow night Hamster Hobby Hang, and then we'll be back next week with. Did we say we're going to talk about the next Kickstarter next week?
We either said it was. I'm pretty sure we said it was going to be a big Cities 2 update.
Right, I got to gather stuff up. All right.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
So we're probably looking at cities next week for the next Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And that's it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks. Thank you guys for hanging out with us for a couple hours.
It's our pleasure.
Awesome.
Hello,
love to hang out.
Good boy. We'll see you guys later. Good night, everybody.
Bye. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.